Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to briefly analyze the main tactical area of weakness that Pep Guardiola's Man City experienced in their 1-1 draw against Brighton earlier this week. So when we break it all down and we do look at the board, we have Man City in a 4-3-3 that looked like more of a 4-1-4-1 with Reinders and Foden just ahead of Nico Gonzalez, and Brighton in a 4-2-3-1. And in this video, we're going to focus on Man City's press because that was the main tactical area of discussion here, because City did encounter some issues dealing with Brighton looking to build out of the back, and Brighton were able to exploit their makeshift backline and they looked to target their fullbacks. So where City's poor productivity in the final third, specifically their finishing, has been a main topic of discussion, here they were vulnerable out of possession, and frankly they were fortunate not to concede all 3 points here. Ultimately, when you break it down on paper, it should be pretty straightforward. You have Erling dealing with the 2 center backs, Doku and Bernardo Silva pushing out to close down the fullbacks, and then you have 3v3 in that midfield zone. Essentially, that's not how City looked to press here, as they didn't have Erling in a 1v2 against a Brighton side that were looking to build out of the back on a consistent basis. And rather than simply having him chase the 2 center backs, they had Bernardo Silva shifting out in towards a position where he could close down Dunk and block off the passing lane in towards the left back. And if Bernardo Silva wasn't looking to close down the left back, he was in more of that half space position to be within close proximity of the center back and the left back. And there were simply times where they had Foden looking to step towards the center back to help out Erling, and then he would block off the passing lane in towards a central midfield marker. Erling did a very good job of closing down the center backs, and when he did look to press the goalkeeper, he was blocking off the passing lane and towards the center backs. But here City used Foden and Bernardo Silva to help out Erling press the center backs, and that often left space out in the fullback areas for the left back to get on the ball, whereas Doku was often in a more narrow position in the half space as well. And ironically, where City's fullbacks were the targeted players here on the night, it was the Brighton fullbacks that often represented as safety valves to help the away sided break in beyond the City backline. There are several examples of City's press and how they look to adopt out of possession to ensure that Brighton couldn't build out of the back, and it often followed a similar theme. The only other time that we would see a variance was when Foden would step towards the center back, and at times Bernardo Silva would shift out towards the spare central midfielder if Foden was blocking off the passing lane, and that would force Nunes to shift across to close down the left back. There were occasions where Bernardo Silva would step towards the center back as well, and that would leave the left back free. And the only manner in which City were looking to stop that threat was by having Nunes push forward, but in those situations when he did, it left a lot of space for Mitoma to pull out a center back. This is not to say that City's press wasn't successful on the rare occasion, and frankly within the opening minutes of the second half, when they did press Brighton's back line at the edge of the box, they should have ended up doubling their lead with Bernardo Silva cutting across a defender, but from point blank range he failed to beat the goalkeeper. And ultimately, there were various manners in which Brighton were able to bypass the City press from the front. And while many can make the case that this was down to a makeshift backline and personnel rather than systemic, here today we're going to break down the various manners in which Brighton were able to do that and how City's backline were easily breached. The first area of weakness stemmed with Brighton playing long balls over the City press towards Nunes as they were targeting him, and you would often see Erling ahead of a center back and then Foden or Bernardo Silva stepping towards the other center back, with Foden blocking off the passing lane into Pascal Gross. But whenever they looked to play balls over the top, they were trying to get Mitoma in beyond Nunes. If we look to an example, you have the Brighton goalkeeper way out of his penalty area with Foden and Erling ahead of the center backs, and Rodri stepping to cover for Foden with Bernardo Silva out towards the left back. Here you see the goalkeeper clip the ball over Nunes and it falls into the path of Mitoma because Nunes can't deal with it aerially, and it allows Mitoma to break freely in towards the penalty area with 2 runners breaking in towards that zone. And from here he squares the ball into the path of Diego Gomez, and it should lead to a simple tap in, but he's unable to make clean contact with the ball and it bounces off his heel and it ends up rolling in and around the 6-yard area, and Mitoma can only make a desperate lunge at it that guides the ball off the post. If Brighton didn't want to play through the goalkeeper, what they would do is that they'd get the ball out towards Dunk, and that would pull out Bernardo Silva, and as they drag out out the central midfielders with Doku narrow as well, they'd simply use Dunk to play the ball around that press, and from there they'd look to play the ball into the space beyond Nunes, or look to play the ball into one of the central players so that they could get onto it and then look to play in the ball behind the fullbacks to have the wide players breaking in beyond them. If you look to one example, you could see that Dunk is being pressed by Bernardo, who's blocking off the passing lane and towards the left back, so he simply clips the ball into the space that Mitoma now has free, and Kusanov can't get tight on Mitoma, and he's able to flick the ball over the top, and that allows Diego Gomez to break beyond the center backs in towards the left channel. And what he ends up doing here is that he's able to have enough space to cut across the City center backs and clip a dangerous ball towards the back post, which leads to a legitimate goal scoring opportunity that forces Donnarumma in towards a save. And later on, once again, it's Bernardo Silva being sucked in towards the ball and the two City central midfielders being pushed higher up the pitch, with Nunes now looking to step in towards Gross. And that ball is clipped over the top into the path of the center forward, who steps into it ahead of the center back. And from here, he's able to play a reverse ball freely as he gains separation from the center back in beyond Ake, who's caught narrow. And he plays in the wide right-sided attacking player to break free on goal. And luckily for City, Ake is able to recover his positioning desperately, and he forces the Brighton attacker into a tame effort at Donnarumma. The other area of weakness that Brighton were able to exploit was down City's left-hand side, where Doku wasn't getting tight towards the right back, so they were often able to switch the ball out towards the right back, and from there he would either have his right-sided attacking player breaking in beyond Ake for 1v1s, or he could look towards Diego Gomez to combine with him, as he was often getting space in and around Nico Gonzalez. So if they weren't playing balls in behind Ake, then from here he was either combining with the right-sided attacking midfielder, or he was combining with Diego Gomez, and from there they were able to break in towards City's half in transition. If we look to an example, it's Reinders helping out Erling and pressing the goalkeeper while blocking off the passing lane in towards Dunk, and Bernardo tucking in with Foden, but the ball is clipped over Doku in towards the right back, and he ends up nodding it and combining with his right-sided attacking winger, and from there they're able to take both Doku and Ake out of the game and play the ball beyond Nico Gonzalez, who is stepping towards Diego Gomez. From here, Brighton are able to break freely, but it's Nico Gonzalez who tugs at the attacking midfielder to halt the Brighton attack. And then if we look to another example, it's the goalkeeper this time clipping the ball over Reinders, who's blocking off the passing lane in towards his midfielder to help Erling with the press, but it falls in towards the right back beyond Doku, and you can see that Nico Gonzalez isn't tight towards Diego Gomez. And what ends up happening here is that the right back plays the ball around Doku in towards Diego Gomez. He's able to receive the ball freely and slide it out towards the wide attacking player, and that simply results in a give and go with the right back running off Doku, and from here he's able to carry the ball in towards City's half, and you can see that he's looking to slide the ball across Nunes, who's dragged narrow, but unfortunately for him, rather than playing in Mitoma free on goal, his pass is slightly under hit, and Nunes is able to break up the play. In the same breath, Brighton offered a similar threat down the left-hand side, with Bernardo Silva often being stuck covering for Reinders or Foden, or looking to join the press with Erling. However, here the options were simply playing the ball in towards one of the central attacking players so that they could drag out the center backs and Nico Gonzalez and look to play the ball beyond the center back for Mitoma, or they could pull out Foden and Bernardo Silva and play it in towards the central midfielder. But what ended up happening here was that whenever they looked to play the ball in behind for Mitoma breaking free, Kusanov's speed helped out City here, and he was able to recover and break up the play. And then lastly, the other main area of weakness that Brighton's build-up exploited against this City press was getting the ball on Diary just in beyond Foden or Reinders, and from here he was able to play penetrative passes in towards the Brighton attackers, and they were able to combine swiftly to then get runners in and across the center backs or beyond the fullback. When we look to one example, you could see Diary on the ball just in beyond Foden, and what should also be identified here is that Nico Gonzalez is covering space and blocking off the passing lane towards Diego Gomez, but here as he's looking to shift to recover, that leaves the Brighton attacking midfielder free. As that pass is played in towards the center forward, he's able to drop the ball off in towards the right back, who is free due to Doku's positioning, and that's where you see Diego Gomez now looking to exploit the space that's been created by the center back being dragged out and make a run across Kusanov. That run is located by the right back, and he does a very good job of splitting the center back and the left back to play in Diego Gomez running off Kusanov, but luckily for City, Kusanov's speed again helps City recover, and he's able to get across to win possession. And then if we look to one of Brighton's better chances in the second half that arguably should have won them the game, you have the goalkeeper on the ball dragging out Erling, and he slides the ball in towards Ayari, who drags out Reinders, and when he receives it, he pulls away the two City players, and he squares the ball in towards the center back. This allows the right center back to now carry the ball forward, as you can see City's shape, and Doku's not stepping because he's focused on the left back, but as the center back carries the ball towards the halfway line, Doku ends up shifting across, and that's where you see the center back playing the ball across Doku into the path of the Brighton right attacker, who's in the gap between the center back and Ake. When he receives the ball, now he can slide the ball out instantly in towards the Brighton right back, and now the Brighton right back has space to carry the ball in towards the final third. Ake's not stepping out, and that creates a passing angle to play the ball around Ake in towards right half space, and this creates a crossing angle for the Brighton right attacker to deliver a ball towards the 6-yard area, as he has both Diego Gomez and the center forward breaking in towards the box. But that ball ends up falling into the path of the Brighton left back, and rather than playing it in towards Mitoma or the center forward, he pulls it back in towards the path of Diego Gomez, and luckily for City, Rodri anticipates that pass, and he ends up making a last-ditch effort to ensure that Brighton can't take the lead. So as you can see, despite poor finishing and fielding a makeshift backline, Guardiola's approach displayed here out of possession was consistently exploited with sheer simplicity from a Brighton side that put a dent in City's title challenge and should equally feel like they wasted an opportunity to claim maximum points.